Hello, and welcome along to the stream tonight. Hopefully, everything is working as expected. I did just try and send out an automated tweet to say that the stream's gone live, but it didn't seem to work, and I don't know why. Hello, Kim. How are you tonight? Yeah, I'm not sure. I've pressed the button on the stream deck. It started the stream, it started the recording, but it didn't seem to send the tweet for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, we are here now. I'm good actually. Today it's been a funny old day, but it's getting there. So excited to be starting a new project. Well, not a new project, but certainly changing gears a little bit and working on another project other than Git Release Manager. So for those who've been following along with the last 5 or 6 maybe streams, then we have been working on a tool that myself and Kim work on called Git Release Manager. So we shipped version 0.10.0 of that recently, and then we quite quickly shipped 0.10.1, and then we even more quickly shipped 0.10.2. But it's live. It's pushed. It's available for use. So with that done, I want to switch gears and go to something else, and that something else is the Chocolatey extension for Visual Studio Code, right? So if I open up Visual Studio Code here, and now we're waiting bug reports from users. Yes, indeed. So if I open up Visual Studio Code here, and I go to my list of installed extensions, then one of those is the Chocolatey extension. So in its current form, it has some commands, so I can walk up to here and I can get commands for doing things like creating a new Chocolatey package, pushing packages, packing packages, that sort of thing. So it's basically providing a mechanism to do within Visual Studio Code some of the things that you can ultimately do from the command line, but providing it in a familiar environment, and that familiar environment being VS Code. So Maurice pointed out in the last stream that as long ago as a year ago, an entire year ago, myself, Maurice, and Kim had done a ton of work in adding some additional functionality into this VS Code extension. And it was mainly circled around changes to the configuration and how things worked in terms of making the extension do the things you wanted it to do, but also providing the ability to essentially provide, not IntelliSense, that's wrong, but certainly provide linting of things that are Chocolatey related. So what have I actually got open here? This is Cake. So if I were to go in here and look at, say, this new spec file, then if there were any errors in this new spec file, whether it's for example, the description was over 4,000 characters, which is invalid and it would cause an error when you try to do the pack, or if the version number wasn't set to something, or if the trying to think of another example, but there are lots of rules in place. And what we were attempting to do is we were trying to create an addition to the Chocolatey extension for VS Code to bring some of that validation of the new spec into VS Code directly. So you would get squigglies under the lines or the sections of the new spec file that when things were incorrect. So another example that Kim said there is that one of these URLs is invalid, that it didn't, I think we went as far as actually validating that the URL actually existed. So we did a lot of work, and for one reason or another, we just didn't ship it. It's not shipped yet. So all of that new functionality, all of that amazing stuff that we added hasn't gone anywhere yet. So I want to circle back around to getting that ready. Now, there's a few things I need to do from a groundwork perspective to make that happen. So the first thing is if this is my GitHub profile. So if I click on repositories and then I filter by sources, so not forks or anything like that, but repositories that exist in my profile, and I search for Chocolatey, then we'll see that there are 3 repositories here that circle around this. So there is, or circle around VS Code and Azure DevOps. Now, each of these repositories live under my organization just now, or my GitHub profile. So one of the things that I decided last year was that I didn't want to have any code, any repositories. And Kim's saying it never was completely fully, if I remember. Yeah, we never got to a point where we finished it, but we could have. I mean, we could have released some of the rules that we had. We just never got around to it. And there were other question marks over how we were going to ship the language server, but we could have put something out, but we never got around to it, right? So what I was saying there was that one of the kind of new rules that I'm setting for myself is that anytime that I have a repository that isn't just mine anymore, or it isn't specific to me and only ever for me, I don't want them to live under my GitHub organization. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move these 3 repositories because they don't live under my profile. They need to live somewhere else. Now, that somewhere else in this instance is one of the things that I also created last year, was this concept of a Chocolatey community organization on GitHub. So this is tangential to the Chocolatey organization. So if I walk up to, let's find that one, and we find the Chocolatey organization, then I don't think I did what I wanted to do there. So here's Chocolatey. So here's Chocolatey, and it contains the Chocolatey CLI, box starter, Chocolatey GUI, other things that are kind of core elements of what is Chocolatey. We also created this Chocolatey community repository. So this organization houses repositories which are driven by the Chocolatey community. So based on the fact that the Chocolatey VS Code extension, the Chocolatey VS extension, which we haven't spoken about yet, and the Azure DevOps extension are kind of all driven by the community. They've had community input, and yes, to an extent, yes. So Kim is also saying there that the ones that are in here, these are the ones that projects that are in here are the ones that are officially supported by the Chocolatey team, right? So these other ones that are the VS Code extension, the Visual Studio Code extension, the Azure DevOps extension, they're not technically fully supported. They were created by me because I felt that they were needed. So for now, I'm going to move these into the Chocolatey community organization, which means that I'll be able to assign better permissions onto those projects, so that the likes of Kim and Maurice, who have been contributors, can be added with additional permissions into those repositories. So that's the first thing I want to do. So I'm just going to get that done just now while I'm here. And then we need to start, I need to refamiliarize myself with where exactly the project got to and what we need to do in order to basically build it again and get back to a point where we can start working on it again. So I'm going to say that, yes, I understand, and I want to transfer that. And that's going to need my GitHub password, which I can do. I'm going to need to go off. No, maybe no. I maybe won't need to go off screen, but I will certainly need to copy this thing. And I'll need to put this into there. There we go. Okay. So for now, I'm going to give owners and this one access to, although Chocolatey software doesn't have any of the existing ones, so let's do that. So let's just put owners in just now. Kim's asking, still not set up YubiKey SC. I could have used that. I could have. But no, I haven't done that. I haven't finished that process yet. They're sitting on my desk, but no, I haven't finished those, unfortunately. I haven't set those up properly yet. So let's get this one transferred as well. So GEP13 Chocolatey-VS Code, and what I said was that this was Chocolatey Community, and we'll transfer that one. We'll give that one owners as well. If only. Right, so let's settings, and then we'll get this one transferred too. So down here we've got a transfer, and this is going to be get 13 Chocolatey-Azure DevOps, and this is going to be the Chocolatey community. Okay. Right, so now that we've done, so those are transferred, I'll need to set up permissions so that the right people can get access to them and all that sort of stuff. But for now, I should have access to them, which is the first port of call. If I refresh this, I'm going to go ahead and fork those repositories now into my own. Clicked on the wrong button. I'm going to fork those repositories so that I have access to them. And where'd the other one go? Chocolatey-VS Code. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fork this into get13. I'm going to fork this into get13, and I'll be able to set up, I'll be able to clone these repositories now onto my VM so that we can start doing stuff with them. So over here, if we go into Chocolatey Community, I should be able to grab this guy, and there we go, and then we'll do a git clone of that one. We'll do a git clone of this one, and we'll do a git clone of this one, git clone of that one. And then if we walk back to this one, and I'll just set up the remotes while I'm here. Get this all set up. So if we cd into the first one, which was Chocolatey-VS, and then git remote. Interesting. Why has that got a bunch of modified files before we even did anything? Okay, that's a question for a different day. That must be a line extension something or other. Git remote add upstream. Let's finish this part first of all. It's got all my remotes set up, and then we'll come back to that. Chocolatey Azure DevOps, copy that. cd into Chocolatey Azure DevOps, git remote add upstream that one, and then this one, copy. So we'll come back to that. So I totally agree. However, the last one was VS Code, git remote add upstream this one. There we go. Right. So the reason that those files, I totally agree with what Kim said. Kim has said that those are binary files and they should be ignored. That is absolutely true. With the exception, that, how did I end up doing this? So what I did was, so right now, and this is one of the things that we need to refactor, within this project, if we look in the source folder, then we have this folder that is the Chocolatey language server. Now, the Chocolatey language server is the component in all of this that allows the squigglies to start appearing within VS Code. It's a implementation of the OmniSharp C# language server protocol that allows communication to happen between the VS Code or VS and this thing running in the background to apply IntelliSense, to apply refactorings, to apply fixes, and all that sort of thing. So this code here, this Chocolatey language server code, lives at the minute within the Chocolatey VS Code extension repository. Now, when I was toying with the Chocolatey VS extension, which is the exact same thing but running within VS rather than VS Code, I didn't want to take all of that code over into this repository, so I just took the generate binaries. Now, that's one of the first things that we need to split. We need to remove the code from here, this Chocolatey language server code, and we need to create a new repository that will house just the Chocolatey language server. That will then be generated as a nupkeg that we can push somewhere, and then we can consume that within the Chocolatey VS Code extension, and then within the Chocolatey VS extension. So we separate the responsibilities, and we make the code specific to what it's for. Now, the Chocolatey VS Code extension, if I recall correctly, its build process assumes that it has to do the build for both the language server and for the VS Code extension. So we'll need to remove that in favor of only doing the VS Code extension, but we will need some part of the process will be required to download the language server either at the point of time of compiling the extension or at the point of running the extension. And that's one of the still the open-ended questions that we need to figure out as well. So I think for now, what I was going to do was just to check to see if everything's still working. So let's go over to, and once we know that things are working, well, then we can start to break things, right? So we're in the VS Code extension. If I walk up to the bootstrapper, let's just see if the build process works. And what Kim's saying is during running would be my vote. So at the point that you run the VS Code extension for the first time, it will run off, download the Chocolatey language server, download it into the right place, and do it that way. Is that kind of what we're saying? And I have no objection to that at all. That I guess no, I mean it's 6 and 2 3s really. I mean it works in either way. Otherwise, we'd need to release a new VS Code extension. That's true, but we might also. So what would our VS Code extension do? Would it check to see if there was a new release version compared to what it had installed, and if it did, download and install it? Or would we need a command that says go off and update the language server? What would we do there? So what this is doing is it's installing all of NPM at this point. This is so a VS Code extension is built on TypeScript, which takes some dependencies on some NPM packages, which means it's downloaded a bunch of NPM or node modules and put them into the respective folder. Now it's building, or it's installing VSCE, which is the command line utility used for compiling and publishing VS Code extensions. So Kim's saying, check if there are new version. Okay, I mean, I haven't set my mind on any particular way of doing it, so happy to do that. That makes sense in my head. But like I say, let's get to a point where it's still working, and then we'll set about breaking it. So this is it building the language server, which is a .NET Core DLL. It's building that, and then it's publishing the publish. The publish was literally put it on the right place in the file system, which is, for now, it's the out folder and then .server, and then the extension loads it from that location, if I recall correctly. So now I'm going to attempt to package the VS Code extension, which again is It did work. Okay, cool. So if I open code at this location, and if I just run F5, I think here. So if I run F5 here, it will attempt to run the VS Code extension that we have the code for in another instance of Visual Studio Code, which is the extension development host. And if all of this works, we should be able to open up a new spec file within that VS Code development host, and we should see things light up, he says. But let's see what happens. There are 17 high severity vulnerabilities that we need to fix at some point. So let's, one thing at a time. So it's still launch extension. It's still, oh, here we go. Switching to debug. So now it's launching the extension development host, which is what I thought it would do. And there's some errors in the background, but those look familiar. There 16 open PRs. I should probably look at as much as I knew that there were some. 13. Right. 17 in total. What are you saying that I'm not? That would probably be most of the 16 PRs. Owned by Dependable. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yes. Some of which I have closed, I think. But anyway, so this is the extension host. So if I go in here and say file. Okay. All good. So if I say open folder, and let's say, have I got one here? Let's go temp. Let's select that folder called temp. And we'll see what we've got in here. Nothing. That's good. So if I go to the command palette and I say Chocolatey, create new Chocolatey package, and we'll just call it test package. So the Chocolatey extension is working within this development host, and we will use the default template, which if we stub that out, that should create a test package folder with the templated files in it. And if I click on the new spec here, hopefully it does. So things are starting to light up. So what is this one? So this is a warning. So in fact, if we go and look at the problems, here we go, look. The new spec has been enhanced to allow more information related to the software. Please add a project source URL. So we don't have a project source URL. So it's suggesting that we can fix that. Those are warnings, or those are information. Up here we have a warning which says description should be sufficient to explain the software. So right now it's got templated information in there. So we could say that this is an amazing application that you must install, right? And then at some point it should reanalyze that warning and it should no longer be there. Now I forget, that was one of the things that we maybe didn't quite have it working, but if I close this new spec and reopen it, does that cause it to interesting. So it's not quite doing what I wanted it to do. So that, oh, there it does. So now it's just figured it out. And then, but if I click on this is the other thing that's pretty cool. That because of the integration, if I click on any one of these, it takes me to the section of the document that's got the problem in it. So this one is the URL is invalid. So it's obviously went off and it's tried to find that URL, and that URL doesn't work. But if I were to put in something like project URL being https chocolatey.org, then again, at some point, the next time it validates the new spec file, that red squiggly will go away. So it seems to still be working, which is good. What we'll need to do now is start refactoring this to have it work in the way that we want it to, right? So I'm going to close this extension development host and let's start refactoring. So, as I said, one of the first things that we want to do is we want to break up the language server protocol, or the implementation of the we will need to move the implementation of the Chocolatey language server, which is an implementation of the OmniSharp C# language server protocol, and we'll break that into its own project. So I need a new repository up here. So if I go to my Chocolatey community repository and I say new, I should be able to create one called Chocolatey language server. Okay, it's going to be public. We can initialize it with a readme. It will be a Visual Studio project. And then the license, I believe, was MIT, because it was MIT for everything previously, I believe. Yeah, okay. So we'll create a new project, MIT license, and we'll say implementation of language server for Chocolatey. Okay, let's go ahead and create that repository there. And then we will go ahead and fork this into here. So Kim's saying that we did implement the URL checks, but they take quite some time. So that's one of the things. Oh no, was there not a piece of configuration that either enabled or disabled the URL checking? And I think it might have been disabled by default, but you could add it in. I also could be making that up. Well, let's go ahead and clone this guy, which is my fork. And let's go to this one, clone that, and cd Chocolatey language server, git remote, add upstream, call that guy. Okay, let's have a quick look. So this has got a develop branch. I maybe misremember. I maybe dreamt it. Totally possible that I dreamt that. Okay, so let's they've all got a develop branch, so that's what I was thinking about. So let's go here, git checkout -b develop from master, git push upstream. Git push origin. Let's take that guy, stick that in there. Okay, and we'll go back to this one and we'll say settings. And we shall change branches to be develop being the default one. There we go. Okay. So in here, the Chocolatey language server is an implementation of the OmniSharp C# language server protocol. So it's just a .NET Core DLL. So we should be able to build it in the exact same way as I build lots of projects, which is with Cake. So I'm going to walk up to my CI/CD pipeline, and I'm going to tell it to do a bunch of stuff. So we're going to build an app there because, I mean, that's how I do all my builds. So let's have that. We're probably going to want Dependabot, so let's put at least an initial stab at putting a Dependabot file in there. Editor config will probably need to be changed, but let's start off with the default one that I have, and then we can work from there. Git attributes file, the default that I have probably needs to be changed, but again, it gives us somewhere to start. So CI/CD, GitHub files will include pull request templates and things, so let's do that. So this is Chocolatey language server. So there's things in there that will need to be changed, but we can come back to those. We've at least got a template. CI/CD, mergify.yaml file. I'll hold off on that one just now. And git release manager YAML file. Let's do that too. Okay. So then I'm going to want Cake bootstrapper files. So let's install a bootstrapper. So let's have a PowerShell bootstrapper. And let's do that again with the bash one. Okay. That's going to be using the default file name, which is called build.cake. We're going to change that to be a recipe.cake. And we're going to do the same in this one to call this a recipe.cake. And to that end, if I look for the cake recipe, I will download a recipe.cake file. And what's that asking for there? Hold on. Did I do that wrong? Please enter to confirm. Okay. And then the source folder. Enter the name. So this is going to be Chocolatey/Chocolatey language server. Oh, I totally did that wrong. Let's do that again. One more time. Recipe.cake source. Enter so this is just Chocolatey community. Sorry, I read that wrong. And then this is Chocolatey language server. Okay, good. So that gives us a recipe.cake file that, oh, you see, it's wrong. Shouldn't be doing that. Need to change that at some point. In fact, let's just do that now. So github.com seriously, github.com/cake contrib/cake.gem, just as an example, because I can never remember this off the top of my head. So this is not quite right because we want that to be a different version now, but we'll start here. And I'm fairly sure that it's currently 1.1. It would certainly help my typing abilities if they did. Let's put it that way. So in here, we're now going to want a new folder called source. And into that source folder, we are going to, so let's find that source folder, which is here. Let's have another Windows Explorer, which is this guy. Okay, and let's go into GitHub, organizations, Chocolatey community, Chocolatey VS Code. So the code that is currently sitting in here, I want to put it over into somewhere else. So the default is that we have it under Chocolatey language server again. So let's just stick to the standard that we have. So we go new folder, Chocolatey language server. And then in here, I want to copy all of this and stick it into there. Okay. I suspect that my CS_proj file is going to cause problems because it's not currently following the same standard. So let's change this a little bit. And we'll need to change that in the solution file as well. If you hadn't noticed, I am flying by the seat of my pants here. I am not entirely sure what needs to change and what doesn't. So Kim's asking the question regarding the depend.config file and whether I'm doing that through a configuration file rather than through the website. I don't have a compelling reason. I think for what I use within that file, and this file is actually incorrect because this was set up for JavaScript projects, which is this one isn't. So we probably will need to do this one through. So let's delete that then. That's one of the ones I have as my CI/CD pipeline assets thing. So we can take that out. But what we're missing is a solution file. We don't have a solution file that currently has this project in it. So let's... Where is my solution file? Did I not have a solution file created? Or is it just a project? We're probably going to want a solution file. So let's maybe just open this up in Visual Studio so that it'll create that for us. So let's do that. Solutions are overrated. Maybes, especially for one project. Solutions, yes, I don't disagree. But I think for this one, we shall create one. So open project or solution, and just as a sanity check, see, you're not wrong, and I could probably add the project to that solution from the command line as well. I just haven't gotten into the habit of using the .NET CLI for some of these things. I should absolutely learn that though. I should. But if we go into this language server folder, into source, and into this guy, and into this one, see, good enough. I'm almost sure you can. But the virtue of opening this in Visual Studio as a project will also create a solution for me. So let's maybe start there and say file, save all. See? So if we go into, so the question is, where do I want to put it? I want to put it here. Okay. And if we do a little build here, build. The build, there's no reason that the build shouldn't work, he says. Build succeeded. Okay. And if we go back to our command line and run build.ps1. What will this do? I mean, this is hopeful, but we'll see. We'll see what it does. If this works, oh, it will likely blow up, and I've just realized that it probably will, because what's the recipe.cake file doing? Recipe.cake file. Oh no, it is running .NET Core. So there's a better chance now. Oh no, it's red. Solution parsers. Okay. Oh, I know what that is though. I know what that is. I can fix that issue. Back to here and say 32.1. That one I can fix. There's been other streams on that topic if anybody's interested in understanding why that change in pinning to that version of Cake was necessary. We'll not go into that today. Okay, so what's it doing? Let's have a look and see. So it's created a build artifacts folder. It's done some stuff with the stuff. It's published the Chocolatey language server folder as a .NET Core 2.1 application. And it's worked. It's got the Chocolatey language server.dll, which is what we think is the what we need. So if this works, what we'll need to start looking at is what additional things did we do in the Cake script that was building both the VS Code extension and the language server project to see if there's anything else that we need to do here. And if there is, we can take a look at doing that. But let's just let this finish, see what it gets to. So if this works, we can look to adding an AppVer project, which will build it, and then we could hook it up so that the the AppVer project pushes it to, say, MyGet, and then we can look to start consuming the nupkeg from there for our development effort to continue, or feeds.io, yes, I hadn't forgotten about it, and push it to somewhere that we can consume within our other project. So we can remove the DLLs from, or we can remove the source code from the Chocolatey VS Code repository, because we've now got it in here, but we need to consume the nupkeg from somewhere else. So in here, what did we do? Yes, Kim, that's definitely an option. Definitely, I'm not ruling it out. I guess my default is just to have everything kind of segregated, but there's no reason to not do that. So let's one thing at a time. Let's get the build working. Not for stable. Oh, yes, because the stable releases will still go to NuGet. So absolutely true there. But it looks like there's a few things that we need to fix here, because there are a lot of files being created in here. Oh, I see. Okay. So in our gitignore file, we need to add some additional entries. So let's go and have a look at our gitignore. And then down here, we need to add a build artifacts. which should hopefully take that number down considerably. But it didn't. Build artifact. Why is that still saying? Is that number just out of date now, or what's? Oh, it's not got the. Hold on, I see the problem, or I see part of the problem. Cake is here and here. Yeah, getting better. Kim saying, I have a feeling it would be easier to download GitHub zip artifact releases in the VS Code extension than a Nutceg release. I think you could be right. But I would agree that I think publishing the Chocolatey language server is still a useful thing to do, though, right? It still makes sense to publish it, assuming other people may want to consume it some way, somehow. Yes. Okay, cool. Okay. So it sounds like we're on the same page. So quick sanity check of the other things in here. Then everything in... I think it makes sense to... Doesn't make sense for those things to live in there anymore, though. They should live at a higher level. So here, rather than these things live here, let's take this out. And we can put this up here. So we're still checking them in. They've just had different location. Solution, CSproj, all of the code that is the rules. And we're checking in the packages.config file. Okay, that's looking good. So, with that done, I was going to do something. What was I going to do? What was I going to do? Was there something? Oh, I remember what I was going to do. I remember. I was going to go here, and I was going to go build.ps1, and I was going to say target equals label. So that, well, one of the things that's baked into cake.recipe is the creation of default labels. A default set of labels for my GitHub repository. So right now, if I look at the labels for that repository that we created, which is here, then the issues and labels, then they're using one way of doing things, which is not really in line with what I typically do. So that little alias that's in cake.recipe changes all of those to be the way that I want them to be. So I'm going to do that. Oh, hold on. What's this? Copy to clipboard. Let's have a look at what Kim's talking about. So this is a gist for workbench color customizations. Activity bar. What does this give me? What does this do? These are all your preferences, right? Oh, choco color. Oh, hold on. Let's have a look then. So this is my... So which ones did I have that? Did I have that already? Or VS Code is just a settings.json file? Settings.json. Let's have a look. Let's see what it does. Love the idea. Copy, paste, save. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, I think I quite like that. That's getting checked in. I'm going to check that in. I'm going to put that in. Let's go now. Okay, so we have a build, and that build is not generating a nupkeg yet. So that's the thing that I was going to be looking at. So if we, but then we weren't doing that, were we? We weren't running we weren't generating an nupkeg because we weren't consuming it as an nupkeg. We were only ever copying the output from the what was essentially the published applications folder directly into the out server folder. So we didn't have a nupkeg before. So there's two things that we could do there. We could either use should run .NET Core Pack as part of the recipe.cake file, or we could change the csproj file for the project to include the pack as part of the csproj file. Enable .NET Core Pack and quit the recipe, which is what I think I just said, and should generate a nupkeg. Then metadata will probably need to be updated though. Yes, all of the above. Now that metadata would come from, in the first instance, from the csproj file, which is in here, which is we haven't set any of that stuff. So but the important thing is I probably don't ever always say things properly though, Kim. That's the thing. So in the first instance, let's just enable should run .NET Core Pack. Now I'm saying that as though that's what it's called, but if we go into here and look at the parameters.cake file and have a search for should run, it's there. So if I copy that and go to my recipe.cake file and in here paste that as true, then if we run this build, that should get us a nupkeg that in theory we could put somewhere, right? We're not going to put that anywhere just yet, but let's just baby steps. So again, let's see if that build works. And if it does, let's submit this as the first commit into the Chocolatey language server repository, and then we'll start removing the other components from the Chocolatey VS Code repository, and we can build from there. So, assuming all that works, we will need to add code to download and extract something from somewhere at the point that the extension is enabled. Now, there was also an open-ended question that we might need to talk to Martin Björkstrom about, which was with regard to, so one of the things that happens just now with OmniSharp and the way that we were setting this up is that it sends, every time the file changes within VS Code, it sends the entire file over to the language server for processing. Martin has implemented a mechanism to allow that to not be required anymore. You can send the diff. So we can send the diff of the changes to the new spec file over to the language server to then get the results back. Thought for processing. Should the language server be published as a standalone executable? Don't know if that works as it should. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether it needs the OmniSharp host in order for it to function at all. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Something definitely to look into though. So if we go over here now and look at build artifacts, then we have a packages folder. Then we've got a NuGet folder that is that one. Beautiful. Okay. That way, the user won't require .NET Core to be installed. Oh, I see what you're getting at. Interesting. Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Something to ask. We can definitely ask the question of Martin. We might also be able to get him back on the stream at some point to maybe help with some of that stuff. Okay, so here we are. All of that is now working. YOLO for the win. So if we say initial project import took existing project from the Chocolatey-VS Code repository and moved it into its own repository, which will allow it to be shared between both the between both the VS Code and VS extensions. So that's what we're doing and why this is going to develop. I'm going to go ahead and commit that. And if we go over here and say git push upstream and git push origin. So now if we go over here and do ci.appver.com and we have a look at the Chocolatey community account on Appver. Currently there are two things here, mainly centered around the Chocolatey core team packages. So every 6 hours an Appver build runs, which will check for new versions of those packages and submit them to chocolatey.org if it finds any. So we can add in a new project here, which is going to be why is that taking so long? Dun, dun, dun. It stopped. Oh, there we go. So if we search here, I've done the wrong search. Control F, server, language server. There we go. It could well be too many repositories. It could well be. There's quite a few. Chocolatey language server in the Chocolatey community. So let's click on this one. I do have a little bit of an addiction when it comes to repositories. I don't know how to stop it. So if we say new build here, let's just see if all of that is working. Okay. So there's no reason that I can think of that this wouldn't succeed. Now it won't do we haven't set up any environment variable, so it's not going to publish any of the artifacts anywhere, but it should result in some artifacts being published to the Appver feed. So let's see if that part works. And if it does, yeah, was it too long? Yeah, Figlet doesn't like that. It really doesn't. I've got a couple projects that exceed the console width for things like this, and it just gets all jumbled up. We could fix that. You came up with a fix for Git Release Manager for that, so in theory, we could handle that a little bit better in cake.recipe and have like a short name and a long name. Well, what I'm saying is, so we could do the same sort of, not the exact same check, but in cake.recipe have the concept of both a short name and a long name in the same way that we did in Git Release Manager for showing the logo, so that it would fail back to the short one in this scenario when it's known to be too long. If it's greater than a certain length, we could always defer to the short one rather than the long one. Because right now, cake.recipe just fires out whatever the title of the project is. It doesn't have any concept of a short version. Okay, so it's uploading AppVeyor artifacts. So that build succeeded. And if we look at artifacts, then we have a nupcake. Right, good. So we are making progress. Okay, so that build works. But we default to the long one in GRM, though. That was because of my opinion, of course. Yes, but so Git Release Manager, the word would likely fit in, but something like Chocolatey Language Server is just too long. So what I'm getting at is that if we had a fixed upper length for cake.recipe, if the title is longer than that, defer to the short version if there is one. Otherwise, just output that. But that's a different project. CL. Yes. Yeah. Like it. But that's a different project. That's for another day. Right. So back over here. Oh, you know what I'm going to have to do now, though? Is I'm going to have to borrow that settings.json file for this one, too. So let's go back to our Chocolatey VS code. And let's start deleting some stuff. So in here, we want, just don't ask anything to type it in the console unless it is clear to clear the console. You've just triggered a memory of something. There's a new extension from John Papa. Have you seen this one, Kim? It's called Cloak. Cloak hides and shows your secrets in environment files to avoid accidentally sharing them with people. So it does some magic that will automatically take out anything in here. I do. But what I don't know is whether it's limited to only N files. It would be great if it could do other files as well. Does Cloak work in files other? Not currently. Cloak relies on TextMate rules and scopes that VS Code supports. These currently only support known scopes, and there is no way I could find that would narrow down the contents of specific files. Okay. So it's maybe not going to do what I wanted to do just now. But I love the idea of saving unwitting developers like me from showing secrets when they shouldn't. So I'll have to keep an eye on this one to see what it does. But anyway, so in the source folder, we've done this one as SRC, the other one is source. We should probably make them the same. Right. But anyway, we took all of this code and we moved it into the other project. So this one in its entirety can get deleted. You can remove that one. Okay. By doing that, we're going to break some stuff in the build.cake file or the recipe.cake file. So I'm imagining that the bin and the obj folders that were being deleted was specifically for that, so those ones can come out. The project file was not needed, so we're not going to need that. Setups, the setup, we don't need that, do we? Not necessarily needed to move the folder from source to source. Source is the most common one used for JavaScript. Oh, I see your distinction. Okay, so SRC for this project because it's a JavaScript, TypeScript project, and leave source full name for the other one. Yep, that works for me. I am going to remove that setup because I think that is specific to this one. We don't need to restore the language server because we're going to do that as a separate build now. Don't need to run .NET Core build because we don't need that. Or source for both. I think we should be consistent. I'll maybe switch. Well, let's have a quick check. What do we have for the other one? This might decide it. If we go up to Chocolatey Community and we look at VS, what do I have in VS? SRC. And here we don't have anything. We don't have an SRC folder in there. So SRC wins. So we'll need to go and change that. Publish language server was all about putting that into the output folder, so we don't need that. So we can remove that, and that was a task specific for that. So this is using a pre-release version of VS Code, which we should probably change that at some point as well. But let's see if this still builds. So now we're in Chocolatey VS Code land. Let's run the build here and see what happens. This is where we'll need to do some magic. Don't forget to update the AppBear account and repo name. Oh, good shout, sir. Chocolatey Community. You said the AppBear account. Oh, the AppBear account will indeed have changed. Yes, no, you're quite right. So that's just going to be Chocolatey Community. That is a great shout. Because we'll need to add a project for that one. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just make sure that this build is working as well. Good. And the extension package that is created will have created a v6 file, but that v6 file is broken because that v6 file now will not contain, I'm saying that will no longer contain the DLL extension unless it was there. Right, so that already existed, so we're going to need to clean that out. So let's go back to here as a sanity check. That's probably something we need to add. So maybe I'm going to delete this folder and I'm going to run that build again. That's not what I want to do. So you're saying it will work, I think, just not doing anything with the language server. Oh, do we have was it a guard, so it only instantiated it if the DLL was there? If that's the case, then absolutely, yes, it will work, because it'll still have the commands, and it'll still have the snippets. It just won't do the language server stuff. It's been a while since both of us have looked at this code. We need to get our heads back into how this thing worked. So at this point, the generated artifact should be significantly smaller, because if we look, there won't be an out server folder, and the build artifacts will just be, yeah, that's better. Okay, so it has a v6, and it's building 080. Is that the next Visual Studio Code Marketplace? I guess I could have checked in the VS Code, but let's just search here. Okay, so here's the Chocolatey extension, and the version is 071. Okay, so building 08 is correct. Okay. 290 seems a high number, but let's not worry about that just now. Okay, so let's add some comments here, which was, so we switched to there, we changed the repository name. No, we didn't change it, we changed the repository owner, which is Chocolatey Community. We changed the AppWare account name, which was Chocolatey Community, and we'll need to add a build for that. And we removed the existing files. So let's just do this as a maint refactor project structure. Moved Chocolatey language. I really struggle with the word language server to its own repository. So that code is no longer required here. Updated recipe.cake to reflect new GitHub organization. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thinking about the work that have been done since then. You think? It just seems like a lot of commits, but maybe, I mean, I saw something the other day with regard to Git version that made me wonder whether it was reporting incorrectly, though. That's at the back of my head, I've got that something wasn't right. So it could be valid. It could be valid. So over here, let's do git push upstream again to get my Chocolatey VS Code updated. And git push origin. And then if we go back to our AppWare, so back to here, and we will back to projects. Let's add another project, which is this one. And we'll wait for this to come back to life. Right, notice Kim saying he needs to go away for a couple of minutes. So we will content ourselves by adding a new project here for Chocolatey-VS Code, which is this one. So let's go ahead and add that. And I'm just going to see if this works. So again, we should be able to build that without anything breaking, he says. So let's wait and see what happens. looks like. Oh, that's the other thing I want to do as well. So while that's building, let's go and have a look at NuGet.org. We'll have a look for vscode.recipe. So the latest release version is 0.10. So what version is it actually using to do the build? So let's have a look in here. Tools 0.10 unstable. So we should really be using the released version. So we'll maybe update that to reflect. Because it's using a pre-release version of the recipe project for VS Code, which I don't think we need to be using. So we can change that. So there's a couple of things we want to do. One was to borrow this again. So copy. We'll use Kim's settings.json file. And already got some stuff in here. So let's borrow just the inner braces here. And I'm thinking we can add that here. Beautiful. So let's do another maintenance commit here, which is to add Chocolatey color scheme. Thanks to add my ringworm. Let's give this capitals. Add my ringworm for this smiley. Let's go ahead and do that. And the other thing I wanted to do was in my recipe.cake file was I want to change that to be, it's really bad, but I never remember the format of the preprocessor directive. So we basically want to remove this part, colon question mark, and let's say non-pre-release. So we'll build this locally, make sure that this is still working as we expect it to. So over here and run build.ps1. That should replace the cake.vscode.recipe with the latest version, which it does. And if this builds locally, we'll push up those changes and make sure it's still working in app var. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. At the package extension step. There we go. Okay, so we'll say build switch to released version of cake.vscode.recipe. Switch to, let's change that to be use. There we go. Okay, with that done, do I get push upstream? And get push origin. So that should have triggered another CI build. There we go. And it's saying that it is invalidating the cache folders because things have changed, which is absolutely true. And we should get a message at the end of all this saying building 293 of VS Code with version 0.1 of cake.vscode.recipe. Okay, cool. And Kim saying he's back. Has he missed anything important? Not really. I have added in the chocolatey color scheme for this project in keeping with the other one, which is great. And I also, well, I didn't specify a specific version. I should do that too. But we remove the usage of myget here so that it's using the official released version of cake.vscode.recipe. And I just realized that after I didn't do it. So let's see if this works the way I want it to as well. I see it won't though, because it's there isn't an extension for that, is there? Huh. I maybe need to. That's a different project again. That's just equals 0.1.0. I might need to add another snippet, or not another command for. True, but that seems a little like cheating. But just to show that what I was to show what I was trying to do is that the cake extension includes searching for. So we're going to search for cake.vscode.recipe. It'll search for those. Those are the list of things it's come back with. That's the one that we want. So we can click on that. And then it'll find what versions are available. And you click on that and it will add. Oh, you see. It didn't though, did it? It didn't. Oh, you see. Don't save. That's a bug. That's a bug. So it's done what we asked it to, which was added that into the top there, but the file was in an unsaved state, so it wrote it to the file but didn't then update the UI with the changes. It also broke all of my spacing, which is a known. I thought that bug was fixed. Yeah, exactly that, Kim. But it also removed the white spaces, which I thought I fixed that, or is that in a non-released version of that extension? I think that's in a non-released version of the extension. So many things to do. So many things to do. Build, pin to specific version of NuGet package. Because that is absolutely the right thing to do. But I'm assuming that the build succeeded. And did we get artifacts? Did I get a V6? We did. Why do we get a nutkeg? There shouldn't be a nutkeg. Where's it getting a nutkeg from? Where is it getting that from? Console. I'm so confused. It did create. Why is it not creating that when I run it locally though? Does it only do that on CI? But yeah, so creating a Chocolatey package is correct in the sense that it will allow the installation of the extension out with the VS Code. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what sort of thought process I would have went through to not include that as the default. So it does package extension by default. And then it stopped. But on here, it does a lot more. So this is what it's running locally compared to the creation of the Chocolatey package, which, interesting. I don't recall why I would have done that way around. But either way, I mean, it's not a big deal. Okay, so that's done. What should we do next, Kim? Where should we look at downloading the nutkeg from somewhere as part of the execution of the extension? Or should we do something else? Let's test what we have. Let's test that. Because as of right now, we don't have the server in the out folder. So what happens when we try and run this? So there was a good reason for that, but I don't remember why. There was a reason that I changed it to be the other way around, but I don't remember. What's the error saying here? That's a lot of problems. Where is it getting? What's going on there? Oh, is there more stuff in that? Oh no, hold on. What folder's that? VS Code? No. Out folder. Oh, it's the packages folder. So this packages folder is causing problems. I don't think we need it, right? I've just nuked it from orbit. I don't think we need that. Yeah. That was my suspicion. But I just nuked it from orbit anyway. So that shouldn't result in any changes, because that folder would have been excluded. Right. So let's try that again then. What happens when we try running it again? Oh, hold on. Executing .NET Publish. Why is it? Is that in the project.json, package.json file? Show errors. Were we doing something else? Nope. Or launch.json. Oh, I see. You could well be right. Launch.json. Publish tasks.json. Yeah. This guy. So the compile extension is just running npm. Restore npm packages, running npm. Compile the language server. We don't need that anymore. Correct? We are publish output to there. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to remove that. Run. Oh, may have to update the launch.json after the removal. I see. Compile extension. Is that what it was called? You are in the way, mister. Oh no, it's here, look. So this one I need to take out because we no longer have that. Whoa. Okay. So it's there. Activating extension failed. Cannot find language server module. Okay. That's fine. I think. Cannot find. So we had a check in here, which was if not server module, throw new URI error. Cannot find the language server module. And server module is. Oh no, we do have this, look. So we have only start the language service if configured to do so. But that's strange. See, this to me reads as though it should be false. Oh, is that? No. Oh, that's a double negative. Disable language service is false. I think that default's wrong. Should that be true? By default? What do you think, Kim? What do we think? I'm not sure I like that name either. Disable language service. That's like a double negative. We've got lots of to-dos in the code here. Oh dear. What to do. Well, let's just test. Let's make this true to start with. And let's just see if it runs. See, I like use language server as opposed to disable. But by changing that to be true, then it should load the rest of the extension and it should provide things like the commands. So if we go up to here and we look for Choco, then it's got all of these things in it. Oh, it still failed. Cannot find. Give me error server. Why is that still saying cannot find the language server module? You know what? I'm going to set a breakpoint. Because we can do that. We can set breakpoints. Or do I... No. It's been a while since I've looked at TypeScript code. That's defining it as a boolean. Let's just see what the debugger says. Apologies for my yawn. It's been a long day. It's been a long old day today. So we should get a breakpoint hit there. Oh, maybe it's F10, F10, disable language service is true. If config is not equal to undefined, config.get disable language service. So yes, I think you're right. The default in there is undefined. Oh. Or that's a bug. And that's JavaScript and TypeScript being... should be a null check in there as well. So that explains why, though. Okay, as a bug, we need to fix that. But anyway, where are we going with this next, Kim? Are we going to make a decision about where to get the server DLL from? Excuse me. It must be getting past my bedtime. So let me think about this. So we've got to do that decision need to be made if the language server should be packed inside the v6 or downloaded during the... So I think the decision that we've made is that we're going to download that at runtime. So if we're in here and we haven't explicitly disabled the language service, then we need to go and find it. And we need to go and find it from a location. So do we provide it a URL to download it from? If that's the case, how do we check for new versions? Because you kind of spoke about it being a zip file, so it would be a GitHub release or it would be somewhere else. But how do we then verify that the installed version is or is not the same as the one that we're downloading? So many questions for such a simple thing. Lots to think about. And what other open issues did we still have on this repository as well? Do excuse me, please. I'm sorry. I may need to cut this short because I think I'm tired. What issues do we have open? Document potential caching issue with testing extension. Add code actions for suppressing rules. Version not getting files. Packing, get files. Documentation. Lots of things. if using a GitHub release, we could check the latest release URL, check the redirected URL from that, and grab the tag. Then have a small text file for the currently installed language server and compare them. So from a, hold on, just thought of something. Settings, open user settings, OmniSharp. There is, specifies a path to OmniSharp. I'm fairly sure that in OmniSharp that you can specify a specific version to install. So I saw there that there was mention of path. It specifies a path to OmniSharp. This can be an absolute path to an OmniSharp executable, a specific version number, or latest. If a version number or latest is specified, the appropriate version of OmniSharp will be downloaded on your behalf. I'm wondering whether we need something similar to that so that we can allow control over what version of the language server gets installed. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to, I don't think I'm going to have to call it for just now, because I am a little bit sleepy. So I'm going to call it for this evening, and with lots to think about. So I've got a pending code change here, which was not that one. Let's leave that. And build, remove compilation of CLS. This is no longer required. I'm going to check that in, and let's push those things. So git push upstream and git push origin. Oh, did I have a typo? That's fine. It's done. I've done it. I've sent it. It's already in the history. Absolutely, there's a typo there. It's all good. Okay, but I think we've got a rough plan of attack. We'll need to update all of the dependabot PRs, which will hopefully get rid of the 17 vulnerabilities that are currently in this extension. We'll do all of those. That's fine. We can have a discussion. Maybe we should create an issue if there's not already one, Kim, and we can have a discussion offline about where to get those. So we can discuss that and how we're going to implement it. I'll need to triage some of these issues to decide which ones we are going to attempt, because this one would be a good one to do, but that's obviously not been done yet. So let's just have a look at the code base again. The whole it's maybe started, has it? No, it's not. It's not at all. No, I remember. Yeah, I started looking at doing the whole Inversify thing, but never got there because of the way it's currently written. So that's something that we need to think about. Yeah. Did some of these not get done? No, there was a PR for it. Need to think about looking at those again. Yeah, I had a chat with Stevie about. I remember having a chat with Stevie about this. So yeah, that needs to be okay. So there's work to be done. Okay, but let's try through the week. I will get all of these PRs merged in, so we're in a healthier code base. We'll create an issue regarding the downloading and installing of the language server and how we want to handle that. That may require some additional configuration to be added in to allow that to work the way they want it to. And then I think we can move forward. But I think for now, what's that one? Error message was installing the extension. Yeah, I want to figure out what that is as well, because I've seen that a few times. I don't know what's causing that to happen. This indeed is from VS Code itself. They seem to have an issue. Oh, there was an issue. So is that closed? Buffer. Well, it's closed. I wonder if there's anything we need to do there to. I wonder if there's anything we need to do there to have that no longer appear. Okay, something to look at. Okay, lots to do. But for now, I'm going to call it, and I'm going to go and get some sleep because I am sleepy. But thank you all for coming along tonight. I hope this has been useful. I hope this has been whetted the appetite for getting the Chocolatey extension for VS Code shipped. I would love it. I would love to have this functionality in there. And Kim's just pointed out a very valid point, which is that some of these issues may need to be moved to the other repository now that we have swept them over. So we'll have to go through these and decide which ones still reside in this issue and in this repository, which ones need to get moved over. Absolutely. And yes. Okay, so that's all from me. Kim, I will chat with you offline about a few things if you don't mind, and hopefully on Friday we will be a little bit further along the road and we can continue working on this. Like I say, I would love to get this shipped. I would really love to get this shipped. The other thing I've just thought about is we also need to because that's going to have moved now, isn't it? The documentation for this, is this still going to work? If I look at this, see, that's not going to be there anymore, is it? And it's not going to be Chocolatey Community, is it? Oh no, it is. Look at that. Okay. So I need to update the docs link, and we need to make sure that all of these rules are still. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do there too. Oh my goodness, lots to do. Okay, never mind. Different day. But progress has been made. I'm happy with what we've done tonight. So we've got all the things moved around, and we're in a position where we can move forward. So let's go with that. I'm going to say adios, and we shall talk to you another day. Many missing. Well, yeah. Baby steps. So on that note, I think it would be good to ship what we have. Let's not concentrate too much on getting every single rule in play. I would love to get a version out that has A, the new configuration, B, a subset of rules, and then work on getting the other ones implemented. The most important ones, I agree, are probably there. And then we need to decide how we're going to handle things like the Chocolatey install.ps1 file, if we can do any sanity checking there. It would be good to do things like PowerShell script analyzer, to maybe potentially make some suggestions there, whether that is custom rules that we add in the PS script analyzer. That's maybe a way of doing that. So yeah, lots to think about in that regard, because I know that Tyler, as part of the PowerShell team, he has recently updated the PowerShell extension for VS Code to also use the language server protocol. So it would be good to see if there was any crossover between that and whether we can add in any custom things into there specifically for Chocolatey. So I might have to have a conversation with Tyler around that to see what we can do. But yes, that's all for another day. For now, I am going to say good night, and we shall speak to you all later. Thank you very much. Talk to you later.